Hello and welcome to the launch of KX Streaming Analytics and the latest release of KDB+, the simplest, fastest and greenest streaming analytics solution. You are listening to our panel discussion, KX in Action, Financial Markets. Financial markets are among the fastest moving, and this huge amounts of fast data flow makes it a challenge to provide teams with the information and the insights they need. So how can financial institutions tap into the information coursing through their businesses to improve operations and stay ahead of the competition? We'll explore that and more this afternoon with James and with Tony. And what a great day it is today, the KX Reveal Day changed the game. So I'm Mike Wilson, I'm the CEO and founder of Ditto, and I have the pleasure of moderating today's session. And I'm joined by Tony Corcoran, KX CTO of Financial Services, and Tony Braun, Paddy Power Betfair Exchange Architect for Surveillance and Fraud. Good afternoon, James. Good afternoon, Tony.
Hey, Mike.
Good afternoon,
hey,
Mark.
Lovely. So just a little bit about me. I've spent a 30-year career at the sharp end of finance and tech and media. I've been based in Asia, the US, and Europe with Arbat, Winter Partners, UBS, Bankers Trust, and Deutsche Bank. In 2008, and we're an award-winning marketing communication practice dedicated to fintech. So some introductions now to James. James is the CTO of Financial Products for KX. Since joining KX parent First Derivatives as a financial engineer all the way back in 2009, James has worked around the world building enterprise systems at top global investment banks before moving to the KX production team in London. Tony Braun is the exchange architect for Paddy Power Betfair, currently engaged at Flutter Entertainment. Tony is an architect of the Betfair Gambling Exchange with a focus on leveraging real-time data flowing within the exchange for fun and for profit. So good afternoon, guys. It's a pleasure to be moderating today, and thank you for taking part in today's discussion and sharing your insights. So a note to the audience. This webinar is being recorded, and you can enter any questions you have in the chat room, the sidebar panel there, so the GoToWebinar side panel. And we had lots and lots of super questions that came in the previous panel, so please do pop your questions in there. So to start this afternoon, I'll give a short overview on the topic, and then I'll ask James and Tony to give their thoughts on the current market situation we're working through. James has prepared some slides and will take us through use cases for streaming analytics in financial markets. And Tony then will share his perspective on streaming analytics in the context of Paddy Power Betfair. And there's lots going on in Paddy Power Betfair. Very much fronted newspaper stuff recently, Tony. It's exciting times for your business. I will also take a look at what's new in streaming analytics, along with thoughts on what the future will look like. As I said, there's plenty of time for audience questions. If you have them, please do submit them. My colleague Mike is collating them there. And James and Tony will sum up later with some closing comments. And the party just doesn't end here. We've got a great digital hangout, which has proven really popular this afternoon, which I'm co-hosting with Kathy Schneider. So when this session is finished here, we'll give you plenty of advance notice that you can pop over there into the digital hangout and meet Tony and James in person virtually, and their colleagues too. And they'll be delighted to meet you and take your questions. So look, a short overview of the topic of KX in Action, clouds, market surveillance, KX in Action, financial markets. So I think, look, growing customer expectations, tightening regulations, and ongoing margin pressure are all forcing financial institutions to find actionable insights faster than they've ever been expected of them before. So within this context, surveillance is a key issue, seeing firms look at how they can further automate their process, deliver powerful predictive analytics, and overcome their biggest challenges. And I'm delighted to explore this and more this afternoon. James, Tony, good afternoon.
Hi, Mike.
So next slide, please. So I think, it'd be remiss of us folks not to set the scene really with the market today, COVID, the pandemic. These are unprecedented times now. James, I know you wanted to share some thoughts with our audience on just the unparalleled spikes in volume and what we're seeing happening in the market. And Tony, I'll come to you for your business. So James, just how is the markets performing? How are your clients performing? If you could set the scene for us, that'd be super.
Sure, thanks, Mike. Well, I mean, we've seen a series of halts to trading in equities markets. Going back to March, we've seen oil prices go negative, which is certainly unprecedented, and the volatility index has jumped to levels that we haven't seen since the financial crisis. And a massive increase in volatility is a really interesting one for us, because increases in volatility tend to mean increases in the frequency of price changes of securities. And when you have the price for security changing, that triggers the change in the price of derivatives of that security, and that cascades out to derivatives of derivatives. So when you're in the business, like we are, of ingesting, processing, managing, and acting on tick level data, i.e., every price change in every security in every market, there's a multiplier effect on the amount of data flowing through the system. So our platforms process and consume an order of magnitude more data during turbulent times like these. One of our customers told us recently they've gone from capturing 1 billion quotes per day to 10 billion quotes per day. And from speaking with our customers, we know their platforms are holding up to these massively increased workloads, and that's incredibly important to us because KX often sits at the heart of mission critical operations.
And so, unprecedented circuit breakers, negative oil futures, financial markets are also handling with not just systemic shocks to the markets like that, but distributed workforce. How has that been bearing out for both KX and for the clients you're working with? We're working remotely and and working from different locations, James.
Sure. Well, I mean, KX is powering many of the trading systems and the markets that make up the industry. So if things have had to carry on despite a massive shift to work from home, we've had to work with our clients to make sure that we can still support the systems, applications that are running and monitoring their trading systems and their operations. So it's been an adjustment, but one that we had to make very, very quickly with no downtime.
Yes, I mean, we can see even trends about end user computing and some firms having a real challenge with pricing sheets and just to core technology when BCP becomes BAU. Thank you very much. Tony, I'd like to turn to you. So, not just from a selfish level of the sports not being on TV, your market has seen quite a dramatic shift with COVID. So I think a useful scene set on kind of introducing your firm, I think, to our audience, but really how the market's impacted your business, and it's quite a contrary view, really, isn't it?
It has. So we're a sports gambling company. That shouldn't be a huge surprise to anyone listening. The part of the business I work in is a gambling exchange in which you can, buy and sell horses, football teams, whatever you like, really, in the sporting world. So, in line with the ancient curse, may you live in interesting times. We are living in interesting times, and for our business, the sort of cancellation or postponement of a lot of sporting fixtures has resulted in, an overall reduction in volumes, should we say. And also a change in the balance of interest from our customer base. So it's had a couple of interesting effects in that some sporting fixtures, which we would normally expect the markets to be relatively inefficient, are becoming much more efficient and much faster. I guess the most profound effect is that there's a department within our group that deals with sporting integrity. So they work with industry regulators or sporting regulators in order to make sure that sports are fair. And they look at all of the market data flowing through our systems, and they can generate insights from that in order to work out whether a match is being fixed, for example. And they're incredibly busy. We've seen a massive spike in, should we say, innovative sports, subprime, you might say, for those in the financial markets. So they've really got their hands full trying to make sure that the markets that we are presenting to our customers are fair and appropriately regulated.
And I know we're going to touch on later, folks. Tony's got a really fantastic case study on with this decrease in volume, it's increased the ability of noise and how you can hear things and the surveillance on that. But also, I think, look, be remiss to say congratulations to Tony. It's exciting times for Paddy Power, Betfair, and the Stars Group. This is just, I think, just touch on what this means, just in sheer volumes and the numbers involved in this are just quite eye-watering, Tony.
They are. So we're very pleased a short while back to announce our merger with the Stars Group. This is the Flutter Entertainment Group and Stars. So as a combined group, we we were both global organizations, and well, I can't suppose you get more global, but we have increased penetration, shall we say, globally. We now have £4 trillion in revenue, 13 million customers. So there's, in terms of our data substrates and insight, there's a vast treasure trove of information in there. So we're really looking forward to working closely with the Stars Group, integrating our various systems and taking the market by storm.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations on the very best of luck from everyone. I know all the keen KXers on the call today will want to have a dig into just this multi-channel environment you're in, and the kind of and also the scenes that you've got in surveillance are super. So without further ado, I'm going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to return to you, James. So I really want to talk about the challenges of adoption and the use cases for streaming analytics in financial markets. So here really it'd be great for you to drive into business drivers, the needs, and then let's spend a little time chatting through the various use cases of streaming analytics. I think streaming analytics and also combined with historical data and also the power of that would be super. So next slide, please. And over to you, James.
Sure. I mean, I think it's fair to say, Mike, that KX is recognized today as the leader within financial markets for streaming analytics and as the dominant in-memory time series platform. And a lot of firms, I think, could put it at the heart of their electronic trading businesses, for example, capturing and acting on every piece of data going through their systems. But really our customers span the sell side, the buy side, market makers, exchanges, dark pools, regulators, and that's because tick data these days is everywhere, and time series data is everywhere. And maybe to talk you through some of the ways the technology is being used. Many of the world's leading investment banks use KX. I would say really is the engine that powers their electronic trading businesses. So whether that's crossing trades internally or routing their clients' orders to market, KX is used to stream the analytics that inform their algorithms. For example, what the likely market impact might be before they execute a trade, and then after the trade to run transaction cost analysis and to determine that best execution was achieved for their clients. Maybe if you look at market making, it's all about constructing the best, most reliable prices and streaming them out to your clients. So our customers in this business use KX to ingest and consolidate prices and liquidity from multiple sources to build real-time views of the market, and then to apply typically proprietary algorithms to those price streams. And that's a world where the tiniest price increments over fractions of a second can be the difference between filling an order and missing a trade. And if you look at none of this stuff can really happen without a tremendous amount of quantitative research to design algorithms and build models. So most of our customers, I would say, use KX to analyze the market at its most granular level, whether data streaming in real time or whether those streams have come to rest. But you can go from the most granular level and you can actually zoom right out then, and you go from analyzing price changes at a nanosecond level to analyzing price trends over years and decades.
Great. I think what's great here too, James, is KX across the trading workflow and trading lifecycle here. So we've got e-trading automation at the front end, in the middle bar tier, risk analysis and monitoring, and then regulatory compliance and reporting. So maybe if we just step through each of these three cases again, James, and just highlight, it's for our audience here, some use cases in e-trading and automation and price discovery. A good example of that, James, please.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the first part I would say of the trade life cycle is price construction. If you're in the market making business, you need to understand the pricing in the market to construct prices. So you've got to stream prices from multiple sources, create a book. From there, you want to offer prices out to your customers, and you've got to do all of this in real time, and then you've got to understand how to do order management and execution management. So all of these things require real-time engines that are running algorithms and receiving signals and analytics, typically from KX platforms, to inform their decision making. From there, you've got to track your positions as you trade, and track the market, and then auto hedge your risk out back onto the street. And to the side of your core trading business, you've got analytics, you've got research, and you need to be constantly improving and updating your models. So there's a combination of ways in which KX is used, right across that trade lifecycle.
So I understand the competitive advantage this technology brings. Seamus talked about a use case, and while I've got now, it'd be great just for you to explore more about one of your tier one financial institutions to move all of their data management to the cloud. Why did it do that, and what advantage did that give them using KX technology to do that, James?
Sure. Well, I mean, when we talk to our customers and we go through that journey with them, migrating to the cloud, and there's a number of reasons why you would do that. And I think there was a lot of hype originally kind of about the cloud and moving large data platforms to the cloud. There was hype around saving cost. It was initially kind of a big talking point. You've in the cloud, you only have to pay for what you use, and you've got a range of storage and compute options, which it go from very expensive to very cheap depending on the performance you require. But actually, as we kind of came through that phase, the real driver, I would say, to move to the cloud, and in particular big market data management systems, is the productivity boost you get. So when you're bringing your analytics and your workloads with you to the cloud, the idea that you can now go from idea to prototype to production much quicker in the cloud than you would have been able to do on-prem. I mean, the days of waiting weeks or months to procure a server are certainly gone. So that productivity boost you get by bringing your analytics with the market data management to the cloud, I think is very exciting.
Oh, lovely. So I think we're going to return to productivity and agility for cloud. Now, Tony, I'd like to turn to you. Next slide, please. So, Tony, I think it'd be really great just to set the scene again on Paddy Power Betfair, and I think also setting the scene on what streaming analytics means for your business. Now, I know you've put together a few slides on this, so if we turn to the next slide, please, Mike. And over to you, Tony.
Sure, thanks, Mark. So I guess the primary need, so why we actually brought KX into the organization, PPB, was driven from the exchange, the gambling exchange. It's sometimes, it's kind of inside information to state that the volume of data flowing through the exchange is surprising. We handle 3 times the number of orders than the London Stock Exchange handles per year, for example. Our market structures are relatively complex, so we'll run 80,000 to 100,000 active markets at a time. We have to handle millions of price changes per second across that tranche of markets. So there are many billions of data points that we're collecting per day about how our markets are structured and how our customers are interacting with them. Like financial institutions, we're similarly regulated as a financial institution. Plus, we're regulated as under gambling laws, and not just in, say, the UK, but globally. Since we have global presence, we're regulated in many jurisdictions. So we have this deep need for real-time risk management, and it does need to be fast because unless we can react in a time frame of seconds, we lose our window to react. If we see transactions appearing in a market which disadvantage other customers, we need to be able to react to that and protect our customers from bad actors.
And just the level of the kind of bad actors and the things that go on, I mean, folk will be very familiar with your product at the front end, but just kind of elaborate on some of the workings of the back end here and how streaming analytics makes a better product for your customers would be great, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of our primary goals is to really deeply understand the customer base. And that's not just to optimize our products, of course. So, make sure we give the customer the best product possible, but really to do that level of risk management. We have a really wide spectrum of actors operating on the exchange, and they range from a punter having a flutter of a Saturday afternoon on the horses to companies full of quant devs, developing AI in order to trade on our exchange. With that comes the usual spectrum of bad actors. We see money laundering, money passing activity, the terrorism financing type stuff that we see across financial markets in the world. We have competitors who use our market data to power their own products. And that's, there's nothing more disappointing than sitting on your own site, lodging a bet, seeing the price move, and having that price move mirrored immediately on a competitor's website. So we try to protect our data, and we obviously try to protect our customers and the fabric of society at large, I guess.
Yes, of course, indeed. And just in terms of the efficiency and performance return that you've seen, just in terms of KPIs and indicators for our audience, some sense on that would be great too, Tony.
Sure. So when we went to market to look at an option for how to handle the fire hose of data coming out of the exchange, we went and evaluated a bunch of different vendors, as you do, of course. The decision was actually incredibly easy to make. So if you think about the ratio of the number of, say, CPU cores that we use to run our platform versus the number of cores we use to analyze the entirety of the output of that platform, the ratio is in the thousands to one. KX is just that powerful for us, that we can analyze huge fractions of the exchange's output with a very small number of cores. That gives us incredible ability to generate insight and to do it greenly and cost effectively. Effectively, to bottom line that, to bottom line that, what we've found is that the technology itself doesn't really impose constraints on us. Our constraints are our ability to spend time developing our capability within the platform and really our imagination, which is, that's very exciting for our business.
Oh, fantastic. That's a great segue back to you, James. So next slide, please. Thank you very much, Tony. So James, you prepared some thoughts here on a specific KX 4.0 use cases. I think we've just heard from Tony just the extraordinary volume of data, volume of channels, volume of working. In fact, the technology they're holding back is the imagination, the time to put more into it. So on the next slide, please, Mike. I know, James, you put together some thoughts here about 4 particular areas you want to delve deep in and spend a few moments taking our audience to each piece. So over to you, James.
Sure, yeah, thanks, Mike. I mean, we think this 4.0 release will allow users to build new applications and to implement analytics platforms in new ways, different ways. And we love hearing from our community of users. So I would urge everyone to try out, the new features, the new release, and tell us about your use cases. In our own product development, we've been experimenting with new ways of implementing some of our solutions. And if I look at the highlight of the KDB Plus release and the multi-threaded primitives, that basically means now that your analytics run faster. But another way of looking at it is that you can now analyze more data in the same amount of time, because you're doing things automatically and parallelized behind the scenes. So an example we've been looking at is going from single venue analysis to multi-venue analysis in our pre-trade analytics libraries, because it gives us deeper insights.
So it's not just the fact you do more, just faster. It means you're able to do far more, look at far more venues, a far richer set of analytics.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're used to having to run an analytic in 50 milliseconds before a trade gets executed, for example, you can now pump more data as inputs into that analytic, because you can process it in parallel, and so you're running analysis against multiple streams. in the same amount of time. So I really like the idea of kind of doing more in the same amount of time. And if you stick with the pre-trade theme, you often need to do very fast comparisons between what's happening in the market right now versus the historical profile of a security or a basket of instruments. And usually the data for these two lookups are in different processes because one's in memory and one's on disk. But as we heard from Mark earlier, the Intel Optane technology is now blurring that line. So these snapshot comparisons between right now versus historical are getting faster for us and more streamlined.
And I guess the reality too, with the huge spikes in volumes that we're seeing, this tick data now becomes historical data, so it's never going away anywhere. You need to reference back to it and to normalize that. You mentioned trade cost analysis and TCA and demand, and that was a key use case you wanted to share with our audience. Could you chat through really what it all means and what's the key benefits and the drivers here, please, James?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is an interesting one. I mean, whereas Optane blurs the line between in memory and on disk. If you look at serverless technology, that is eliminating the need to even think about process management or machine level architecture. So one of the use cases we've been exploring is to have an on-demand TCA or transaction cost analysis service. I mean, typically you want to run TCA on every trade, but unless you're a high frequency or a systematic trading desk, you might not need a dedicated on-prem TCA application. So if you use KX with AWS Lambda, you can just write and deploy analytics now that run on demand. So you can have an event-based architecture where you can trigger, for example, an execution report to run every time you fill an order or execute a trade. So we think our integration with serverless technology has great potential for applications like this.
And so just recap, James, exactly what does that mean for if audience members sitting down today and they run a risk management function at a tier 1 firm, what would this type of functionality mean for their business?
I think it can simplify your architecture. I think it can, and inevitably when you're doing that, you're reducing your costs and your overhead. But I think the really nice thing here is the ability to build applications with new architectures and cloud native architectures, and that gives you an opportunity, as you're migrating a lot of your KX estate to the cloud, to take advantage of some of the cloud native technologies, and we're trying to provide support for that as you move.
Super. So I know the last piece here is Business Insights Direct to the Enterprise, and this is really exploring all about Dashboards Direct, the visualization part of this. And you got a couple of particular use cases you want to share with the audience here, James.
Yeah, well, I mean, Dashboards Direct, it's a great product. It's a really cool tool for building visualizations, and we actually use it as the front end for all of our solutions. And it's got native support for streaming architecture, which I think makes it really unique. But the best thing about the product for me is how quickly you can generate insights and then share those insights with business users. And if you're doing that with real-time data, then that's really powerful. So I would say, get it into the hands of your quants, your strat group, and build analytics and put them on sales traders' desktops, because I think they'll get a lot of really great insights out of it.
Great. And just on the subject of insights, so I think historical time series database, we get that, streaming analytics, we get that. How much now is AutoML, machine learning, and those type of tools coming into play? Is that just everyday norm now, James, or what's the level of adoption on that?
It's certainly becoming more and more prevalent, and that's definitely the reason we're investing more in our machine learning strategy and releasing more and more tools and interfaces to machine learning technologies. I would say at the moment, most of our customers are using it in the research and analysis phase. Typically, they're building large sandboxes or historical databases in the cloud, and running lots and lots of machine learning workloads on them, typically overnight. And the AutoML released today, tries to streamline the full kind of end-to-end workload of a data scientist. I think as we go forward, machine learning will be pulled more and more into the pre-trade and at-trade engines. And so it'll be really interesting and exciting to see where that takes us.
So just to recap, the fast just got faster. We've got fantastic new functionality for people to develop on demand. I think the TCA piece on demand is a fantastic use case. And then this continuous intelligence piece and the AutoML, I think it's just a fascinating, really exciting piece. So I'm going to leave it there with you, James. And Tony, I'm now going to return to you. Next slide, please. Now, it was, dear audience, I had some fun with Tony and the folks on these slides. We said I had the best name slides coming up, but this is KX in action, and there's a couple of slides that Tony's prepared. They're really, really a lot of fun here. So next slide, please. So this piece here, Tony, just chat our audience through what the macroscope is, what we can see in the screen here. I think between the outer rings, if we start with the alerts and abuse and then work our way inwards, and just chat us through what we're talking about here, please, Tony.
So what our journey with KX has been for the last sort of 2.5 years, and what you're looking at, the macroscope, is a concept which is our kind of current point of understanding of the capability and how our philosophy about how to approach the capabilities offered by the KX platform has evolved. So what we, like many companies perhaps starting out, we started with just the ability to ingest our data so that we could refer to it later on. Then we started out with some streaming analytics, effectively single use case insights that we were generating off the back of that, market data piracy, for example. But as our understanding of what this platform can do for us has grown and evolved, we're now being relatively ambitious, as we all want to do. We want to be able to look at the behavior of our platform, and in fact our business, at anywhere from the level of an individual transaction to a high level business key result, effectively. So what we're building is, I might actually go from the inside out, if that's okay with me.
Sure.
That sort of inner shell, if you like, is effectively raw platform data. So we're recording streams of bets coming in and getting matched, and market data going out, market pricing going out to our customer base. What we're doing is building a shell of multi-use, kind of abstracted insights around that, around risk to, around data egress, how much value is accrued from a particular transaction, how much risk is associated with that transaction, and indeed how much risk is associated with our platforms in supporting activity that's coming in from our customer base. From that, we can generate higher order insights. So we can intermix those kind of secondary insights to produce a shell of tertiary insights, which are much more digestible, so we say, by the business. And we're kind of, that's obviously our analytical framework. We are fairly heavily involved with KX-based dashboards as well. We're completely sold on streaming dashboards. They're fantastic. And just to speak to a question actually Mark Sykes was asked earlier on about, if you've got that much information coming in your dashboard, how do you deal with it?
Yes, yeah.
So what we're doing is, and we've got the first generation macroscope of the entire exchange up at the moment. We're trying to present higher level insight in order to give the ability to see as primary indicators where you might want to pass your attention to, and then getting the ability to drill into that information all the way down to the level of an individual transaction or set of transactions that are hitting one of our servers, for example. And it's a really a powerful capability of rendering insights at virtually any level all the way down to raw data, and it's super exciting. It's a capability that, you know, a couple of years ago wasn't really even on our radar, and we're kind of implementing it today, and we're pretty excited about that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, so to summarize this slide, Tony, before we move on to the next one, we've got data at its core and the trade data of the betting data. We then have the analytics and analysis that ringed around that. And then on the outer piece here, it's your business rules, policy, those pieces that you're able to say, okay, we can drill right in, as you say, to a trade level piece of analysis. Super stuff. So I know the next slide wins the prize for the best name of a slide, which is Whack-A-Mole. So, which I know you're the author of Whack-A-Mole. So explain Whammo to our audience, please, Tony.
Yes, we're very proud of Whammo. So what we realized fairly early on in the piece is just generating insight isn't particularly handy. I mean, it is useful and good, but we wanted to be able to act on that insight in an automated fashion. You know, we had systems in play which were detecting market data piracy, for example, but they would take in the region of days, sometimes up to a week, in order to take effect. And that was, you know, that was a game that we were always going to lose at that kind of timescale. As an actor can spin up a new account, you know, we're not in the business of making it difficult to spin up an account on the exchange and start transacting. So you know, we were always going to lose if we didn't operate in fine-grained timescales. So we actually ran a hack day, and just to give you an idea of the speed at which we could get KX running and integrated, we spent in a day to not just generate insight, but to build out the framework, the business logic and countermeasure engagement, so that we could react to events we were seeing in our data and the insights we're generating from them in seconds. And that's been an extremely exciting capability. You know, we built it as a framework. You can see on the right-hand side there, business data piracy was our kind of first use case, and that's been unbelievably successful. So we can now detect a data pirate, close the account, see the account pop up again and close it again, all within, I think our record's a little under 20 minutes, which is, you know, effectively we're winning the game against that kind of thing.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Tony. So look, I just remind audience, please do pop your questions into the little panel to the right-hand side, and we can answer our questions here. We've got some coming in, and we can also take it to our digital hangout. I'm now going to return, conscious of time, folks, here, I'm going to return to you, James. Next slide, please. So James, you put some further thoughts here on KX and action, just to again, for our audience here. Next slide, please. And if we just chat through, you've got some great use cases here. We can't share the company names with our audience, but we have a large Asian investment bank, a tier 1 securities firm, and a global institutional bank. Just quickly chat through KX in action here for our audience.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, these are some concrete examples of things our customers are doing with KX, you know, here and now and in production today. And they're by no means unique applications of our technology, but I think they're worth highlighting for the breadth of what KX does across these businesses. So the first is an example of a bank that adopted our suite of products to power their end-to-end DFX business. So they're using KX for price construction, for order management, execution management, for their risk and auto hedging engines. And ultimately now, compared to where they were before, you know, they've got tighter spreads, better liquidity, better distribution, and that's allowing them to do more business with their existing clients and to win new clients.
And the securities firm, James?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's another example. You know, this firm adopted KX on the cloud to help them automate their fixed income market making business. It's a massive installation of KX on AWS actually, and it gets initialized every night to run model back testing using machine learning, and then they deploy the parameterized models to production, where they've got automated pricing and execution engines being powered by KX microservices. And ultimately, the goal here is to reduce their reliance on human intervention during the trade life cycle. So, in many ways, a lot of parallels with Tony. You're trying to, not just gain insights, but then automate actions off the back of those.
Sure.
And then we picked a third example here as a customer who initially had deployed KX in the front office for market data management and pre and post trade analytics. But then they extended it out by employing, I would say, an integrated data strategy across the front, middle, and back office. And that meant they were quickly able to implement a surveillance system on top of that same platform, as well as adding a regulatory reporting system later on. So they ended up with an integrated platform with a lower total cost of ownership of that platform, and with the ability to implement new applications really quickly.
So I know that banks are going into an ever more increasing stringent regulatory framework. Do you just want to touch on what KX provides, just in terms of helping folk be compliant and also adhere to market regulations, James, please?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, obviously, the regulatory regimes have really ramped up in recent years, and I would say a lot of firms that we work with, there's a greater onus now on regulatory compliance being driven by the front office. So, the front office typically has been capturing all of this data for years and years and years at a very granular level, like we spoke about earlier, to power a lot of their trading operations. But it's the same data now that needs to be reported on to the regulators. So we work with our customers, advising them on how to build these architectures into their systems. But we also have a range of solutions for different regulatory regimes all over the world, including kind of the monitoring and surveillance side of things. So and that kind of goes back into the front office when you look at things like market abuse regulation and first line of defense. So a range of different things, but the key to all of it, I would say, is having a data platform kind of sitting there that can service a multitude of different use cases, so that you get the benefit of that.
Love it. Thank you very much. So James, I thank you very much. I'm going to return back to you, Tony. I know you put some slides together here. Next slide, please. Which is looking to the future, and you put some thoughts together, just what you're constantly evolving and developing. So you just said, next slide, please. Just chat to our audience some of the stages of development of Macroscope, great word, and what this means for your business, please, Tony.
Absolutely. So I guess there's three main pillars. We want to maximize the amount of data flowing into our Macroscope. What we've found is that we gain exponential increases in our capability to generate insight as we bring new data feeds online. Plus, we're currently using this method to actually protect the platform itself. So where we see customers breaching fair use, we can apply controls at the point of entry and do it automatically. So we want to extend that across the rest of our platform services to make sure it's fair for everybody. The other thing we want to do, obviously, is increase the sophistication of our analytics to generate higher order insights, and that's an ongoing process. We're looking at machine learning and AutoML as well, so I'm quite excited about the AutoML release today. I'll certainly be going to code.kx.com and having a look at that. And obviously as well, maximizing the integration of those insights. As I mentioned before, it's one thing to have an insight, but it's another thing to actually properly integrate and automate it into your business. So there are kind of three main pillars, if you like.
Super, and I know we can take it further into the digital hangout and for a chat show. So next slide, please. I'm very conscious of time. Time is a zipped past. But if you just wanted to have one key takeaway for the audience today, Tony, what would that be?
So it's a quick one. If you're on the fence about whether you should engage KX, I'd advise you strongly to evaluate, to jump over that fence and have a look. There are vistas in our business that have opened up as a result of the capabilities that we get out of the platform, and you know, our world would be a poorer place if we didn't have that partnership with KX.
I love that. There's vistas in our business that have opened up. That's very poetic, Tony. That's super stuff. That's really great. And one key takeaway yourself, James, for the audience to take away today, what would that be?
Sure, yeah. I would say to existing users, use this release to take a step back and look at the range of existing and new features and capabilities, and ask yourself, are you getting the most out of your KX platform today? And in particular, are you using the streaming architecture to generate real-time insights? And to anyone who's never used KX before, get in touch with us, because we'd love to hear from you and listen to how we can help.
Well, listen, we have some really great questions that have come in. If you go to the next slide, please. I'm conscious of time, but we'll spend a little more. We've got one question here we'll take here. And it's a question for both of you, actually. Is, can you elaborate more on cloud and the business drivers and benefits of cloud, both for KX and for Paddy Power? So maybe if we start with you first, Tony, a quick snapshot on what cloud has meant for your business, then we'll have you finishing, James.
Absolutely. So the adage when you've got a customer-facing business is, milliseconds or tens of milliseconds of latency basically spell loss of business. So we really need to project the edge of our business out to be as close as possible to our customers. And given that they're global, that means spreading our systems out all over the globe. When you've got the need to generate insight in real time and react to what your customers are doing, and what most of your customers are doing is way out on the edge of the cloud, it's super critical to have a platform that is capable of being projected along with the dynamic data that your business is presenting, so that you can manage and control that data. So it's the serverless capabilities that have been announced today are pretty exciting from that perspective. We can generate first order analytics right out on the edge, feed them back to a coordinating system, and have feedback controls going back out, in which we can apply at that edge.
See, if you're not processing on the edge, you're taking up far too much room. I love it, Tony. That's great. So, James, just closing comments for you on that question here has come up. Elaborate more on the cloud and the business drivers and benefits in 1 minute, please.
Sure. Well, I mean, we've done a lot of work on the cloud in recent years. Google announced us as their financial services partner of the year last year. We released a stack benchmark of KDB Plus running on GCP. We're partners with AWS, and we've obviously released support for AWS Lambda today. And we've got KDB On Demand as well, which of course runs in any cloud. So we've been working, in R&D and with our customers to help them migrate their KX estates to the cloud. And as I say, the real driver for us, I think, is the benefits of the productivity boost you'll see when you get there. And that idea of going from initial concept to prototype to production much faster, I think is the real theme that we want to work on with our customers.
Lovely, super stuff. So next slide, please. Well, I've really enjoyed our chat, James and Tony, and I can't believe how quickly the time has just zipped by. So listen, folk, if you fire up a new browser, head to allthewskx.com/live. Both James and Tony and myself are heading over there now, and we'll have a quick chat. I'll be co-hosting that with Kathy Schneider, the CMO of KX. Next slide, please. The fun just doesn't end here, though. We've got one more panel coming up today. I'm delighted to host both Paul and Shamak. We're going to talk about IoT across industries and KX in action there. But for now, just to say thank you very much, audience. Thank you very much for attending. Huge attendance numbers and for the questions all coming in. Thank you, James. Thank you, Tony. If we all poodle over now to the digital hangout, KX.com/live, we can meet the guys and continue to chat there. Thank you very much indeed, guys.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Tony.